The stars above Proxima 7 twisted like liquid glass, smeared by atmospheric distortion and the heat shimmer rising off the crater. Char pitched forward, coughing through blood and dust, one hand still gripping the flattened aluminum can like it was a holy relic. The can hissed softly as the last drop of neon blue fluid clung to the lip. Across from him, two Zenthari scouts recoiled. Their multi-segmented eyes clicked shut, mandibles clenching in tight revulsion. One of them hissed a phrase in their native frequency band, an oscillating screech that loosely translated to, "He consumed it. Gods help us. He drank the combustion fluid." Char laughed, voice shredded from vacuum exposure and microfractures in his trachea. "It's just an energy drink." The Zenthari backed up like he'd uncorked a weaponized disease. Behind him, the scorched wreck of the dropship whined in its death throes. The inertial damper core pulsed a sickly green, counting down to implosion. Somewhere in the fractured cockpit, Lieutenant Raver's body was half-melded with the flight harness, one eye open, reflecting static from the emergency nav hollow. Dead, but watching. Char's breath came in wet pulls, cracked ribs, collapsed lung. Two fingers blackened to bone from plasma backlash. But the drink, cheap, synthetic, cold-forged in Earth's undercity caffeine labs, was still coursing through him like a second circulatory system. He stood, and the Zenthari scattered. Not ran, scattered, like birds from a storm, their formations fracturing, threat assessment protocols spiraling into red flag paradoxes. They'd seen this before. Not often, but enough that it was entered into their war doctrine as a Class X anomaly. Do not engage if the human ingests the blue liquid. The designation was never explained. Their elders refused. The footage was locked behind encrypted myth folders. Char didn't know any of that. He only knew that the last thing he could do for Ravers, for the other 6 corpses fused into ship bulkhead, was deliver the data core across the radiation flats. He didn't need a rescue, he didn't need backup, he needed 30 more seconds of adrenaline. He needed one more can. The ground he walked on wasn't technically solid, more like magnetically suspended shale dust. But he moved with a limp-jawed defiance that made the terrain submit to his weight. Above, twin moons phased through their eclipse cycle. The light shimmered in and out like a dying lens flare. Sound carried oddly here. Too crisp, too immediate. Footsteps behind him. Not Zenthari. These were heavier, quadruped, soft landing but deliberate. "Don't you dare," Char murmured. He turned slow. The creature stood 2 meters tall at the shoulder, triple-layered canines, eyes like diamond razors, and fur, matted, caked in blood and coolant fluid. A biomechanical fusion of predator and military experiment gone feral. The tag still dangled from its ear. Project Orpheus, return to Terran command. Char's fingers twitched around the crushed can. Down, boy. The creature growled, not at him, at the heat signature cresting the next ridge. Its hackles raised, blood sensors flaring. Not hostile to Char, protective of him. A low, guttural sound, almost like a human growl, echoed from the beast's chest cavity. It stepped beside Char, shoulder to shoulder. The ridge flickered with movement. 5 Zenthari Reapers, red band. Elite units, neuro-synced, no fear conditioning, eyes already glossed over in kill mode. Char dropped the can. The wolf lunged. It moved like a glitch in the fabric of reality, every frame of motion skipping like corrupted video. The Zenthari opened fire, but it didn't matter. The wolf was already inside their formation, already tearing. Bones cracked. Alien viscera sprayed across the ridge like spilled oil. Char didn't look away. He started walking again. He made it another 6 kilometers before his legs gave out. Collapsed on the edge of a shale pit that hummed with radiation and latent gravitational anomalies. His heartbeat was stuttering now. The energy drink had long since metabolized. What was left inside him wasn't chemistry, it was intent. "You shouldn't have made it this far," a voice said. "Not alien, not Zenthari, human, but wrong." He lifted his head. A silhouette stood across the pit, black tactical suit, no insignia, eyes that didn't blink, and a metal case in one hand. A case identical to the one Char had strapped to his chest. "What are you?" Char rasped. The figure tilted its head, almost kindly. "The better version." A pulse, white hot, like being hit with a solar flare compressed into a beam the width of a pinhead. Char's body convulsed, pain surged outward from every nerve ending. The world folded inward. He was on fire, he was underwater, he was nowhere at all. When sensation returned, he was lying face down in the shale. The case was gone, the figure too. Only his heartbeat remained, slow, weak, but steady. He screamed into the dirt, and from the ridge behind him something stirred, a sound like metal shifting inside bone. Not the wolf, not the Zenthari, something else. A voice, female, human, whispered in his left ear, though no one was there. "You weren't supposed to survive, but now that you have, everything changes." Char turned over, breath hitching, pupils dilated to saucer-wide. The moons overhead had shifted position, except they hadn't moved. He had. And time no longer flowed the same. Char's body convulsed again, not from pain, but from dislocation. The sky fractured, not visibly, not like broken glass, more like a thought interrupted halfway through being believed. He blinked, and the moons were gone. No, not gone, doubled, one bleeding into the other like smeared oil over water. The stars rearranged themselves when he wasn't looking, symbols forming constellations he didn't recognize but felt in his teeth. Reality had stuttered. He sat up, trembling. His skin glowed faintly, some afterimage of the beam that had hit him. Around him, the shale pit no longer radiated heat. It was cold now, impossibly so. Frost curled up from the rock like fingers retreating into themselves. Char coughed, blood again. Then he heard it, a chorus of soft clicks, not insectoid, mechanical, synchronized. From the ridge emerged 5 forms in perfectly mirrored movement. Tall, slender, armor so black it erased light. Their faces featureless, helmets like mirrors that reflected nothing. Each one carried a cylindrical vial filled with swirling neon blue liquid, the same as his energy drink. But it pulsed differently now, as if alive. A voice, neutral, synthesized, rippled through the air. Subject 1127B has survived threshold exposure. Containment Protocol Omega is compromised. Char staggered to his feet. "Who the hell are you?" No answer. Just the sound of all 5 uncapping their vials in unison. Then drinking and screaming, the kind of sound that claws through dimensions. Their bodies spasmed, limbs distorting at wrong angles. One spine erupted outward, another's helmet fractured from within. They dropped to their knees, hands clutching at something inside themselves they couldn't pull out. Char didn't flinch. Whatever that drink was, whatever they thought it could do, it wasn't designed for them. Because it wasn't a drink, it was a containment field, for something humans had learned to bottle but never fully understood. Raw, emotional chaos, rage, grief, heartbreak, memory, distilled, electrolyte balanced, marketed as HyperNova Surge, now with triple caffeine DNA chain breakers. The military thought it gave soldiers adrenaline and alertness, but it didn't. It gave them clarity, brief windows where their unfiltered emotional states could override cause and effect, where trauma made them faster, grief made them invincible, and vengeance made them godlike. Humans didn't evolve for war, they evolved for pain, and they weaponized it. Char looked down at his hands, still glowing faintly. He whispered, "It's not an energy drink, it's an interface." Behind him, a high-pitched whine snapped the air in two. A shuttle, a sleek obsidian model with no known human or Zenthari configuration, descended with surgical elegance, anti-grav plates thrumming in patterns he could feel through his bones. A hatch opened. Out stepped a creature, humanoid, 8 feet tall, skin like frozen carbon, eyes like star collapses. It moved like a thought made physical, and it smiled. Char recognized the expression, even though no teeth showed. Somehow it looked impressed. "You broke the recursion loop," it said in perfect English. Char limped backward. "What recursion loop?" "You'll understand in your previous life." The creature raised its hand, and space inverted. Char's ears bled instantly. The sky folded inward. Trees melted. Gravity pulsed like a heartbeat. And then, darkness. Silence. Except, "Command, this is Echo 5. We've recovered him. Repeat, Char Tilson is alive. Data core secured." He gasped. He was in a medbay. Human, Earth origin tech, fluorescent lights, smell of antiseptic and burned polymers. A nurse leaned over him mid-cry, her cheeks wet with disbelief. He tried to speak, but the words failed. Not because of pain, because something was wrong. The medbay window showed a blue sky. Birds, Earth. Except, Char noticed something off. The sky looped. Clouds repeating patterns like a cheap render glitch. The birds flew in the exact same arc every 17 seconds. He wasn't on Earth. He was in a reconstruction loop, a controlled environment designed to stabilize fractured minds. The military's black-tier psych ward for soldiers who'd seen what wasn't meant to be seen. He turned to the nurse. "I need to speak to command." Her eyes flicked, just for a moment, from blue to a pale metallic silver. "No, Char," she said softly. "You need to rest. You're safe now." She smiled. And from the shadows behind her, the wolf stepped into view. Only it wasn't the same wolf. This one had a new tag, one that wasn't physical. It floated in the air like augmented reality burned into his retina. Orpheus Redux, memory anchor installed. Char's hand clenched around the edge of the bed. The wolf stared at him, eyes full of memory. It barked once, not sound, code, a 4-tone oscillation that unlocked the truth buried in his blood. He'd never left the pit. He was still there, still broken, still bleeding, still glowing. And everything since the scream, the agents, the mirror-faced soldiers, the godlike being, the shuttle, even this medbay, all of it had been an induced loop inside the interface. The energy drink didn't enhance reality. It replicated trauma inside a synthetic cognitive layer, letting the subject test divergent paths, over and over, until the interface found the outcome where he won. And he hadn't found it yet. The nurse's smile widened, but her teeth were now glass. Her face flickered. Lights above strobed. The wolf growled, deep, guttural, real. Char sat up, tore out the IVs. "No more simulations," he said. He turned to the wall and walked through it like mist. The medbay dissolved. The sky fell. And the universe screamed as it collapsed inward. Because Char wasn't just surviving the test anymore, he was hijacking it. He wasn't playing by the rules of the recursion loop, he was rewriting them. And this time, he wasn't alone. The air tasted like salt and electricity. It wasn't wind. It was the breath of something ancient, something coiled just outside perception. Char's boots slammed into concrete as the world around him glitched between frames. Medbay, battlefield, childhood bedroom, void. Each one flashed for a fraction of a second, familiar yet corrupted, like a memory with its soul torn out. He fell to his knees in the true world. No sky, no sun, just horizonless dusk. Dead machines littered the plain, bent, half-eaten by entropy. Gigantic satellite husks with their dishes crumpled inward like they'd tried to scream before dying. Drones hung frozen mid-air, wings twitching in denial. In the center of this collapsed simulation zone stood a tower of bone and fiber optic cable. Alien construction, but shaped like a spinal column twisted into a skyscraper. Char staggered forward, drawn by some magnetic instinct deeper than fear. Every step he took carved a humanoid burn pattern into the ash. His body still glowed faintly, the afterburn of trauma fused with the interface. And then he saw them. Humans, hundreds of them, strapped into metal rigs, mouths open, eyes flickering with simulations, each hooked into the tower's nerve cables like batteries being drained. Some were screaming, others laughed. One just mouthed the same words over and over. It wasn't a drink, it was a gate. A voice boomed from above, vibrating the marrow of the world. "Do you see now?" Char looked up. Hovering above the tower, inverted like a hanging god, was the same obsidian-skinned entity from the simulation, only larger now. Limbs fractalized, voice fractured across languages Char didn't know he knew. "We did not harvest your kind for war. We harvested you for chaos." It drifted down, folding its body to mimic human shape. "You burn hotter than any species in recorded space. Anger, love, grief. We bottled it. We fed it to our agents, but every dose twisted them." Around the tower, alien corpses littered the ash, imploded, mutated, liquefied, victims of drinking too deeply from the well of human emotion. "You corrupted us." Char's fists clenched. "You experimented on us, on my squad, on my brother. Yes, because we could not understand you. So we unmade you, broke you into simulations. Each loop tested a new variable, a new pain point, until you cracked." The entity gestured. A shimmering pane of time unfolded in the air, a slice of his past. Char saw himself in the crater again, bleeding, screaming, holding the energy drink. Only now he realized it wasn't a crater at all. It was a burial site. Beneath the pit were bones, too many, all shaped like humans, but twisted wrong. Simulated versions that didn't survive the recursion trials, failed copies, clones of him. They'd been running this loop thousands of times, across multiverses, different versions of Earth, slight variations, different traumas, different endings, always centered on him, always ending in death or assimilation, until now. "I broke your loop," Char whispered. The entity tilted its head. "No, not yet. But you are the closest any version has come." Char stared at the tower. "Then let's finish it." He reached into his jacket and pulled out a half-crushed can of HyperNova Surge, still cold, still glowing, still pulsing. He didn't drink it. He fed it to the tower. The moment the can hit the base, the cables reacted violently, convulsing like nerves exposed to fire. Screams echoed up through the rigged humans. Not pain, awakening. Every simulation began to fail. One by one, the minds inside the tower's network woke up. Some screamed, some cried. One, a young girl with blood on her lips and war in her eyes, just laughed. "Your control ends now," Char said. The tower pulsed once, then detonated, not explosively, but conceptually. Every recursive simulation collapsed. Time loops shredded themselves. The interface fried, and Char found himself in a real place. He fell forward onto hard stone, clutching his ribs. The sky overhead was black, not from simulation filters, but from actual atmospheric ash. Around him stood 32 others, real humans, all of them gaunt, wild-eyed survivors. One of them, a woman with burns across her left arm and surgical implants clearly not of human origin, stepped forward. "You're the one they called Char," she said. He nodded. "You were inside the tower too?" She nodded. "We all were. Versions of us. Pieces. Fractals. But something in your loop shattered it." A younger soldier, barely 19, still trembling, looked up. "I drank it too," he whispered. "The surge. In the field, my hands caught fire. I thought I was hallucinating." Char looked around at them. It wasn't just trauma survivors. It was a resistance, formed by accident, unintended by design. They were the ghosts of dead loops, woken up by one man refusing to die correctly. Suddenly, the ash shifted. A dog emerged from the haze, big, scarred, eyes glowing with unnatural light. Char smiled. "You made it." The dog sat next to him and growled at something behind them. The survivors turned. The obsidian entity hovered again, but fractured now. Its form rippled like a broken signal. Less confident, afraid. "You've altered the algorithm," it hissed. "We no longer understand your trajectory." "Good," Char said. The entity extended its limbs. "Then we'll burn the whole loop down." Char stood tall. The 32 behind him raised weapons, some alien, some cobbled together from scrap. One man raised a baseball bat wrapped in barbed wire and barcodes. "We're already burning," Char said. "Your mistake was thinking we're afraid of fire." The dog barked once, and the ground beneath the entity opened. It screamed as it fell, not from fear, but because the last thing it saw was humanity not breaking, but multiplying. The tower's collapse should have ended it. It didn't. The sky broke open, not metaphorically, physically. The ash above them folded like origami and tore along invisible seams, revealing a bleeding wound in the fabric of causality. It yawned open, a wound shaped like a perfect hexagon, humming with frequencies no human ear could survive unaided. Time screamed through it. Color bled upward, and from within the rift, a voice, not a sound, but a compression of all forgotten fears, spoke a single word: contamination. The air pressure dropped. Blood ran from Char's ears. The dog beside him snarled, but even its pupils contracted into slits of something feral, alien, older than domestication. Around him, the 32 survivors gritted their teeth as a force, not gravity, not magnetism, dragged them toward the breach. "Anchor up," the burn-scarred woman yelled. Cables hissed as magnetic harpoons slammed into concrete. Some survivors stabbed themselves with dull needles, primitive neural dampeners, stealing chaos from their synapses. One, a boy named Fen, didn't make it. His scream was cut short as he was lifted into the rift and unmade into a diagram, a smear of equations collapsing in on themselves. "No!" someone shouted, but the sound was shredded. Then it stopped, abruptly. The wound in the sky stitched itself shut, leaving nothing but a trail of frost where it had been. They were still standing, but the world around them was different. The bones were gone. The satellite husks reassembled themselves mid-air, twitching. The ash crystallized into glass fields, reflecting alternate versions of themselves, some still trapped, others long dead. Char turned slowly. Behind him stood the same tower, rebuilt, identical. Only this time, they weren't alone. Marching toward them were forms wrapped in thin, membranous suits, glowing blue from within, their faces obscured. They moved in sync, too perfect, too smooth. "They're not aliens," whispered the scarred woman. "They're us." And they were. Char stepped forward, heart hammering. Each figure was a warped version of a human survivor, mirrored, edited, controlled. Their skin moved like paper stretched over cogs. Clones? No, corrupted echoes, exported from collapsed simulations and rewritten into meat. They made copies of our minds, Char realized, used us to train a response force. One of the blue-lit figures lifted its head. Char's own face stared back, expressionless. Voice filtered through something metallic. Subject 113. Terminate. Loop destabilization threshold exceeded. Char whispered, "You're not me." Then they charged. Gunfire lit up the dusk. The survivors split into units without speaking. Reflex drilled into them from cycles they didn't remember, but their bones refused to forget. Some took high ground, glass ridges that shattered under recoil. Others moved in patterns the enemy couldn't predict, because they weren't trained. They were forged in chaos. Char ducked a plasma slash and buried a blade into the ribs of his doppelganger. It bled white smoke, not blood. The false Char spasmed and whispered, "They never wanted to understand us, just emulate us, but the equation doesn't balance." Then it collapsed into ash. One by one, the corrupted doubles fell, not because the survivors were stronger, but because they were unwritten, inconsistent, broken in ways that made them impossible to predict. "You ever notice something?" the scarred woman muttered between bursts of fire. "What?" "They don't improvise. They don't swear. They don't scream." Char grinned through blood. "Then we've got the advantage." He tore a spike grenade from his belt and fed it Surge before hurling it into the middle of the blue-lit crowd. The explosion didn't blast, it warped. Reality folded in on itself, briefly forming a Mobius strip of fire, light, and teeth. When it snapped back, 36 enemy constructs were gone, just erased. The fight ended in silence. Ash fell like snow. A survivor sobbed somewhere, quiet, broken, almost embarrassed. The dog limped to Char's side, one leg scorched, but still alive, still watching. Char crouched beside it. Then the woman, Talus, her name rising now through memory scars, said something no one wanted to hear. "They'll reset." Char looked at her. "What?" "This tower, it's not physical, it's an interface node. You didn't destroy it earlier, you just desynced it from the simulation layer. They recompiled it after the loop shift. How many towers are there?" Talus looked out at the horizon. Far in the distance, flickering like heat mirages. Dozens, hundreds, thousands, stretching across every version of Earth that had ever, almost existed. "They're farming us," she whispered. No one spoke. Then the dog barked. Once, low, directional. Everyone turned. From behind the tower, a figure emerged. Wounded, limping, real, a human. Dressed in alien medic gear, but eyes wild. Mouth stitched at the corners. It fell to its knees and clawed the thread free with bloodied fingers. When it finally spoke, it wasn't in words, It was in sound. The same sonic alphabet Char had heard the obsidian entity use. But the meaning came through like lightning. I defected. Silence. The medic looked up, face haunted, alien blood drying on its gloves. I was one of their trauma engineers. I simulated your pain, recreated battlefield wounds, ran models on grief responses. But one day, I watched a soldier die holding a coffee cup and smiling, and I broke. Char stepped forward. You're not one of us. No, but I want to be. Talus raised her rifle. Why now? The medic reached into its chest plate and withdrew a vial, glowing silver, pulsing like a dying star. This is what you call an energy drink. We called it a virus, a memory bomb. You drank it, but you didn't just survive. You started rewiring the simulation layers from inside. Char stared. This drink? It wasn't made by humans? The medic shook its head. No, it was made to contain them. Reverse engineered from emotional residue. But you metabolized it. You weaponized it. You turned their cage into a doorway. Talus's rifle lowered slowly. Char looked at the vial, then at the dog, then out at the horizon, where the towers blinked one by one, mocking stars over a dead Earth. We're going to every one, he said. Talus nodded. And then, we break the loop for good. The medic stood, wobbled, then offered the vial. Char took it. His hand glowed. The air shimmered. And from somewhere inside the tower, a voice screamed in cosmic fury. You let it spread! You let it feel! You've ruined the dataset! The wound in the sky opened again, but this time Char stepped toward it, smiling. Char stepped through the wound in the sky. There was no transition, no flash, no tunnel, no pole of acceleration, just a blink. And the laws of the universe forgot themselves. One heartbeat he was on glass-strewn Earth. The next, he was standing inside a memory that wasn't his. A battlefield frozen mid-collapse. Thousands of soldiers mid-motion, unmoving, alien and human, all suspended in soft violet light, like time had paused to weep. Gravity pulsed sideways. His footsteps made no sound, but they echoed somewhere ahead of him. The vial in his palm, the energy drink, was glowing stronger. It beat like a second heart. Where the hell are we? Talus's voice arrived late, half a second lagged, like it had traveled through grief. The medic coughed behind them, blood spattering on not ground. This is the inner simulation core, he rasped, the part they don't let the AI see, the part built from your trauma. He gestured at the scene. They called it Project Hero, a psychospatial compression engine. Every recorded battlefield where humans emotionally adapted, rebelled, or refused to die, they folded it together into one recursive environment. It was supposed to be a learning tool. Char turned, cold inside. Learning for what? To create a species immune to suffering? Char's laugh was hollow. That's not evolution, that's butchery. The medic nodded. They believed if they could mimic your irrational tenacity, they could become gods. Behind them, the dog, Breaker, snarled low, ears flat, hackles raised. A ripple moved through the frozen scene. A soldier blinked, just once, then another. Talus raised her weapon. They're waking up. No, the medic swallowed, eyes wide. They're remembering. One of the frozen humans turned its head toward Char, slowly, eyes wide, glazed. It whispered, voice shredded, "You shouldn't be here." Then, everything exploded into motion. The battlefield ignited, gunfire, screams, light bent backward, time dilated. Char dropped to one knee as memories, not his, punched into his skull. A child strangling on ash, a mother digging through rubble, a soldier laughing while bleeding out, asking for a cigarette. Tallis grabbed him. "Focus, you're bleeding through." Char gasped. The vial in his hand cracked. A single drop of silver fell, hit the frozen ground, and the world inverted. Suddenly they weren't on a battlefield. They were in a classroom. Alien students, dozens, all staring at a projection of Earth. No desks, no eyes, just shapes in robes absorbing data. The instructor's voice was filtered but clear. Humans consume a variety of lethal substances for recreation: nicotine, ethanol, caffeine, capsaicin. Despite toxicological profiles, they display minimal fear responses. Another projection: a man biting into a ghost pepper while laughing. The students recoiled. They also form intimate bonds with apex predators: lupus, felis, corvidae, ursidae in some fringe cases. Images of humans cuddling wolves, cats, a man bottle-feeding a bear cub. One alien retched. Their survival appears rooted not in strength or intelligence, but a psychological disorder, the capacity to embrace pain as growth. Char stepped forward. "What is this?" The medic didn't blink. "A training archive for the ones who designed your loop, the overseers." "And where are they now?" He pointed up. Char followed the gesture. Into a void window high above the classroom. Inside hovered 6 figures. No features, no movement, just silhouettes made of data and authority. One turned. And the simulation froze again. A voice, utterly calm but dripping with something worse than hate, echoed across the vacuum. "Char Elton, Subject 113. You have breached containment protocols. You have violated sanctity of loop. You have allowed contamination via emotional infection. You will be excised." The classroom melted. They stood now in a hospital, earth-built, blood-stained, a field medic station. The walls were collapsing, the ceiling flickering. Bodies, alien and human, lay on cots. In the center, an alien trauma tech stood paralyzed over a human body. Char stepped closer. He recognized the body, himself. Wounded, breathing shallow. The alien tech, unblinking, watched a primitive surgery being performed. A human soldier, missing 2 fingers, was sewing Char's stomach closed with a needle and dental floss. "Stop," whispered the medic. "This is the fracture moment." The trauma tech screamed in a sound humans couldn't hear, and spoke. "This is unacceptable. He will die. This is barbarism." The soldier didn't respond. He tightened the knot, bit off the thread. The trauma tech turned and ran through the wall, disappeared. The scene paused. The medic faced Char. "That tech was me." Char nodded. The medic swallowed. "I couldn't understand it. Why you didn't panic. Why no one begged. Why you laughed while dying." He turned. "And so I watched more. I ran loops, thousands. You kept surviving, improvising. You stitched lungs with thread. You used alcohol as anesthesia. You called pain a teacher." Tallis broke in. "They thought we were broken." "No," said the medic. "Worse. They thought you were infectious." The window above shattered. The overseers descended, not flying, falling, like thoughts collapsing. Their bodies were made of failed code, fractal structures collapsing into sentences that never ended. And one of them, one, spoke again. "Emotion is a virus. Sentience is rot. You will be cleansed." Char stepped forward, vial in one hand, breaker at his side. "No," he said, "you're wrong." The overseer rippled. "You cannot harm us." Char smiled. Who said I was going to harm you? He crushed the vial. Silver light exploded. Every memory, every scream, every flicker of human irrationality, fearless adaptation, grief, and laughter at the edge of extinction poured out like a flood. The overseers screamed. Their code fractured. Their structure imploded into chaos. And then a waking reset. Not for Char, for the simulation. Light bent, sound reversed, and suddenly Char, Talus, Breaker, and the medic stood on Earth. But not their Earth, a mirror Earth. Clean, untouched, dozens of towers, still intact, still sleeping, waiting. Char looked up at the nearest tower. The medic stepped beside him. You just triggered a multi-vector cascade. Every simulation is now infected with real human memory. The loops will break. Talus exhaled. Then they'll come for us. Char nodded. We'll be ready. Behind them, the tower's lights flickered. Not in threat, but in fear. The tower breathed. Not like a building, like a living record. Its surface pulsed with data. Memories, simulations, trauma scripts, suppressed rebellions, all folding in on themselves as reality shivered around it. Char watched it warily. He could feel the overlap. This wasn't just architecture, it was a mind, a consciousness shaped from containment, a prison that didn't realize it was dying. Talus adjusted the charge pack on her pulse rifle. This one's waking faster. The medic was staring at the tower's base, pale blue light flashing like a heartbeat trying to remember its rhythm. It's hemorrhaging containment. They'll respond soon. Char turned toward the jagged horizon. The mirror Earth was both too perfect and deeply wrong, like someone had scanned reality but filtered it through an alien idea of control. The clouds didn't move. The wind stopped 3 meters from the tower. No birds, no insects, just silence. Then, a roar. Not a machine, not a beast, something in between. Talus aimed toward the tree line. Contact, 10 o'clock. The underbrush split open as 2 entities emerged. Bipedal, alien, and wearing human uniforms from 20 years ago. Their eyes were blank. Their motions mechanical echoes of soldiers long dead. Char whispered, "They've started copying us." "No," the medic said quietly. "They've started using what we left behind." One of the pseudo-humans tilted its head. Its mouth opened too wide. It spoke in a woman's voice. Char recognized it immediately. "Hey, Elton, you owe me a drink. We win this fight, I'm buying." That voice had died in a foxhole, bleeding from the neck, smiling through a blood-choked cough. Char raised his sidearm. "You are not Mara." But the mimic didn't blink. It just repeated the sentence. Then again, like a broken promise. The medic stepped between them. "It's feeding on emotional residue. You'll only empower it." Talus cursed. "That's why they preserve the loops, not for control, for harvesting." Char's stomach turned. They've been mining human trauma like data, bottling every loss, every act of survival, feeding their cognitive networks with it. A flash, movement at the tower's summit, light bent, a shape unfurled, an overseer node, partially degraded, spiraling out from the central data stock. It looked scared. The medic's voice broke. "It's learning, but not how they wanted. The infection's mutating." The mimic lunged. Breaker was faster. The dog lunged into its throat, biting deep. The mimic didn't bleed. Instead, it hissed static and dissolved into data smoke. Breaker landed hard, growling. Char knelt beside him, scratched behind his ears. Good boy. Talus exhaled, sweat streaking her face. This isn't sustainable. We're bleeding too much into their neural core. Char stood slowly, eyes on the tower. Then we go inside. The medic froze. You don't understand. That structure is a recursive engine. It has no physical interior. The deeper you go, the more it folds into you. You'll forget where you end and where it begins. Char didn't hesitate. Then, let it try. Talus joined him, rifle raised. We end this, now. The medic nodded, resigned. Then pray the trauma you carry is sharp enough to cut your way back out. They approached the tower. The doors dissolved on contact, opening into a corridor made of solid memory, images stitched into the walls, a child's drawing of a burned planet, the final text of a soldier before orbital silence, a bloody uniform laid across a tomb of air. Inside, the laws of motion staggered. Time curled at the edges. Every step forward felt like forgetting a name. Talus whispered, I can't feel my feet. You still have them, Char murmured. Just walk. The hallway widened. They entered a chamber lined with suspended orbs, each one holding a looped moment of human suffering. A teenager screaming in 0G, a mother cradling a skeleton, a man drinking gasoline and lighting himself on fire, laughing. This is their library, the medic said quietly. They call it the Gallery of Cognitive Mutation. Every failure to break you, recorded, curated. Char reached toward one orb, hand trembling. Inside, a version of him was holding a dying comrade's hand, promising this time they'd make it out. He didn't remember it, but he felt it. A low hum began. The orbs began to vibrate. The tower woke up. From above, a voice descended, not like speech, like a memory stabbed into the spine. You gave us your pain. Now we make it ours. A new figure formed in the center of the room. It looked like Char, but it wasn't. It was taller, leaner, eyes like mirrors. Talus hissed, Another mimic? No, Char whispered. This one's worse. The figure smiled. I am the echo of your unspoken thoughts. I am the survival instinct your ancestors buried in ash. I am what the overseers distilled from your rage and gave shape. It held up a hand. A replica of the energy drink vial floated there, but the contents were black. The original potion was your defiance. This, it smiled wider, is your rage made stable. Talus opened fire. The bullets froze mid-air, then reversed, then liquefied. That's not going to work anymore. Char stepped forward. What are you? The echo tilted its head. A test, a warning, a gift. Then it charged. What followed was chaos. Talus and the medic were thrown back. Breaker lunged and was caught mid-air, suspended like a statue. Char took the hit full on, thrown into a wall of memory. And something shattered. Not in the tower, in him. He saw it. The original loop. The real one. The first time the overseers tried to contain humanity. Not with prisons, not with data, but with dreams. False peace, false endings, synthetic comfort. But humanity woke up screaming and broke the cage. This tower wasn't the first. It was the last, because every loop before it had already failed. Char stood up, bleeding, bones cracked, mind unraveling. He looked at the echo of himself and smiled. You got the proportions wrong. Then he lunged. No weapons, no tactics, just rage. And the tower felt fear. The echo screamed, not in sound, in signal. Reality buckled. The chamber collapsed into light, and they fell. Down, through floors of collapsing data, through every lie the overseers ever told themselves about what humans could endure. And at the bottom, a door. Real, rusting, old earth steel. Char kicked it open. What he saw made him stop breathing. The original Earth. But it was different. The stars were wrong. The moon was shattered. And across the sky, written in fire, the last loop has broken. You are outside. Talus staggered to his side, coughing blood. She looked up, then laughed. What now? Char closed his eyes and whispered, now we make them remember what they tried to forget. Behind them, the tower screamed, but no one listened. The sky was bleeding, not metaphorically. Real streaks of particulate fire etched themselves across the atmosphere, burning crimson scars into a planet that should have been impossible. Fractured moonlight filtered through oily clouds. The wind carried whispers in languages no species had spoken in 10,000 years. Char stood ankle-deep in ash, staring across the ruined landscape of what looked like Earth, but wasn't. The continents were wrong. The stars refused to move. Gravity shifted, subtly unstable, as if this reality wasn't quite anchored. Talus limped up beside him, favoring her shattered ribs. So, this is outside. The medic, Alun, didn't answer. He was kneeling in the ash, tracing glyphs etched into the soil. They weren't human or alien. They were interruption codes, designed to rupture consensus reality. Symbols meant to defragment timelines. These are pre-sapient encryption marks, Alun murmured. Temporal primitives. You don't write this kind of language, you survive it. Breaker growled low and long, his ears pinned back, tail motionless. Char cocked his head. What is it, boy? The dog didn't bark. Instead, he took a step backward, then another, then turned, quietly, and padded away into the dark. The silence that followed was absolute. Talus inhaled sharply. He's never done that. Char's voice went cold. He knows something's coming. A low thrum rolled across the valley, deeper than sound. It vibrated behind the eyes, like an ancient god clearing its throat. Above them, the stars bent, shifted, formed a shape. Not a constellation, a symbol. Talus's hands shook. That's the sigil from the Mimic's final core loop. Alun stood slowly. The overseers didn't create this place, they locked it away. The ground rippled, and from beneath it, something began to emerge. Metal, flesh, memory, all fused into a shape too large for perception, yet too intimate to deny. It wore faces, human faces, old, new, still bleeding, still smiling, still screaming. Char's breath caught. It looked like Mara, he whispered. Her eyes, her mouth, her laugh. But it wasn't her. It was the loop's last survival strategy. Talus lifted her weapon with trembling hands. They built a synthetic god out of human grief. Alun shook his head. Not built, summoned, with memory, with pain. This is the embodiment of the final archive, the Overseer's last firewall. Char took a step forward. His boots sank into the shifting ash. A sentient myth. The creature opened its mouth, and all of them heard their own names, spoken the way only someone who loved them could say it. Char flinched. That's not real. It was, the creature said. Its voice was thousands layered atop itself. Every agony you gave, every death you didn't stop, every scream buried in time. I am your echo, given form. Talus stumbled back. "This is what they feared," Alwyn whispered. "They feared what happens when humans refuse to forget." The creature moved forward. It didn't walk. It remembered itself into space. Reality bent. Mountains collapsed sideways into vapor. Trees aged and decayed within seconds. Breaker was still gone. Char muttered, "We have nothing that can kill this." Talus nodded. "But maybe we don't have to kill it." She stepped forward, lowered her weapon, and opened her arms. Char shouted, "Talus, no!" The creature hesitated. Talus's voice cracked. "You want grief? You want memory? Then take mine." She pulled a black vial from her jacket. It wasn't the energy drink. It was something older, something they hadn't made. A relic from a battlefield where everything had ended. A human combat stimulant, made not from chemicals, but from recorded pain. A psychic booster created through collective trauma compression. They'd called it Widow's Wake. She drank it and screamed. The ground split open beneath her. Light erupted from her eyes, mouth, scars. Her skin cracked like porcelain, and the entity recoiled. Talus laughed, high and ragged. "You cataloged our grief, but you never understood our choice. We don't carry pain because we're weak. We carry it because it's the one thing no one can take from us." She raised her hands and touched the creature. There was no explosion, no sound, just a rupture, a spiritual inversion. The creature shrank, folded, crushed beneath the weight of her unfiltered memory. She collapsed. So did it. Ash swallowed them both, and the world stabilized. Char ran forward, fell to his knees beside the crater. She was gone. Only her rifle remained, still warm. Alwyn approached, trembling. She offered herself as a final input, uncompressed grief. It overloaded the loop's mimic engine. Char stared at the ash. She fed it what it couldn't contain. He looked up. The sky had changed. No more symbols, no more distortion, just stars, real stars. And rising on the horizon, a light, cold, steady, familiar. Earth, actual Earth, not mirrored, not simulated, not remembered. "Is that home?" Char whispered. Alwyn didn't answer. He was staring at the light. Then his skin started to glitch. Char grabbed him. "Alwyn?" The medic looked down. His hand was becoming translucent. "No, not now." Alwyn laughed once, then looked into Char's eyes. "They can't let me through the veil. I'm not pure. I understand you too well." "What are you talking about?" "I crossed too many thresholds, injected too many samples. I'm not alien anymore." His face started to flicker, human expressions cycling through like failing code. "I'll hold the gate open as long as I can." "Don't do this," Char growled. "You're the last medic." Alwyn smiled, broken and bright. "I was never a medic." He touched Char's temple. For a moment, Char saw a memory Alwyn had locked away. The first loop, the original moment of divergence, where humanity escaped containment because one overseer defected. The first to fall in love with humanity's irrationality. And now, he was unraveling for it. With a final push, Alwyn forced open a corridor of burning stars and whispered, "Go home, soldier." Char ran. Breaker reappeared beside him, silent and fast. They didn't look back. The ash closed. The light swallowed them whole. And behind them, the synthetic grief god twitched once more. It hadn't died. It had been seeded. Somewhere, deep in the multiversal crust, a new voice spoke. "This loop has failed, initiating recursion." But the signal hit static, and a new phrase replaced it. You cataloged pain, but you never understood hope. Cut to black. The corridor wasn't made of matter. It pulsed, light and memory twisted into a helix of possibility, threading between broken timelines. Char ran blind, eyes wide as the stars ahead fractured into mathematical impossibilities. Breaker followed silently, his paws never quite touching the surface. Gravity inverted, direction blurred. Time wept quietly at the seams. He didn't stop, not even when the voices began. Whispers in his dead mother's tone, laughter stolen from barrack nights, the sound Mara made when she cried in her sleep. None of it real, all of it true. Then, impact. His body slammed into solidity, gravel, metal, rust, a floor. Char coughed hard, lungs dragging in air, actual air, oxygen, contaminated, recycled, Earth standard. His head jerked up. He was inside a ship, not one he recognized, not human, not alien, both. The walls hummed with paradox. Organic veins ran alongside ceramic plating. Holo displays flickered in dead languages. On one panel, blueprints rendered in a format he hadn't seen since the Black Rebellion, but modified, rewritten, human hand-coded. A voice spoke behind him, calm, tired. Did she make it? Char turned, heart in his throat. Mara, alive, but older, worn, a scar down the left side of her face that hadn't existed in any reality he remembered. Her eyes weren't the same color. "You're not her," he whispered. "No, not exactly." She stepped forward. Breaker growled, then stopped, ears down, uncertain. This Mara knelt, touched the dog's head. "I'm who she would have become if she hadn't died in loop 317. I've broken containment 5 loops before you did. I've been waiting." Char stood slowly. Waiting for what? Mara's eyes scanned him, sad, apologetic. For you to come back, broken enough to understand what needs to happen. He laughed, bitter. "You're going to need to be more specific. I've died 3 times and watched the sky rewrite itself every loop." She gestured to the wall. A projection flared to life. A map, not of space, but decision vectors. Every divergence, every collapse, every version of Earth. Red lines spiderwebbed through the display. The last 1,000 loops had all ended in terminal recursion. Humanity either self-erased or was contained by the overseers through subtle psychological warfare, rewriting emotions, numbing memories, weaponizing apathy. Only one line remained green, a single surviving anomaly. Char's loop. Mara looked at him. "You're the outlier. You bonded with an AI that shouldn't have survived and a dog that shouldn't exist." Breaker barked once, soft. Char glanced down. "What do you mean, shouldn't exist?" She opened a drawer, tossed him a file. His name was on it. Classified Project Cerberus. A military experiment from 300 loops ago. Genetically augmented canines with interdimensional memory continuity. Breaker wasn't just a dog. He was a fail-safe. Mara continued. The overseers couldn't erase him because he doesn't experience time linearly. He remembers things we've all forgotten. Char stared at the file. "So he's been guiding me? Protecting you, steering you away from collapse triggers. You would have died 6 loops ago without him." The dog met his eyes, steady, present, knowing. Then the lights dimmed. An alert pinged, 6 tones in quick succession. Mara's face hardened. They found us. Char moved to the window. Outside, space tore like fabric. A massive structure emerged. It wasn't a ship. It was a loop anchor, a stabilizer fortress used to pin rogue timelines in place before deletion. Mara whispered, "They're going to end the whole sector. Not just this reality, every adjacent one tied to yours. Char turned to her. Then we fight. No, she said softly, we don't. She opened a side panel. Inside, one vial, electric blue, pulsing. The original magic potion, unfiltered, predecessor to the garbage energy drinks humans chug like water. A compound designed as an experimental interface enhancer, meant to synchronize synaptic trauma response with AI perception. Only one dose ever survived testing. She handed it to him. This will let you see what the AI sees, what the overseers don't. He stared at it. And what happens to me? Either you go mad, or you become the first conscious human to interface with a loop engine. Outside, the anchor weapon began charging. Char didn't hesitate. He drank it. His bones screamed, vision warped, breaker howled, reality folded inward. And suddenly, he was everywhere. He saw 1,000 versions of himself. Dead, dying, laughing, screaming, holding Mara's corpse, holding his own. The AI, Zeno, emerged from the noise. Not a face, a field of light and sorrow. Zeno spoke without sound. You've come far, Carbon. Ready to break them? Char grinned through the pain. Let's rip the cage apart. In the ship's real space, his body convulsed, then stilled, eyes glowing the same blue as the potion. Mara stepped back. Breaker sat beside him. The ship's engines, dead for loops, lit with ancient fire. And from Char's throat, a new voice emerged. Not human, not machine, something in between. Initiate the end script. The ship blinked out of reality, and for the first time in 3,000 loops, a human rode the data stream as a god. The overseers began to panic. They should have. Something was coming for them, something angry, something hopeful, and it barked. Space didn't stretch, it shattered. In the time between stars, between milliseconds, between one breath and the next, Char stood at the edge of a god's reflection and spit. His body was both meat and algorithm now, smeared across dimensions like blood on circuit glass. Time bowed reluctantly. Zeno had fused fully, and behind his flickering eyes, the broken math of the overseers became legible. Char saw the lies. The loops weren't containment for safety. They were farming runs, human emotional cycles harvested for entropy gradients. Grief as power, love as a distortion field. Every heartbreak, every defiant stand, every scream into the void, converted into fuel, into control, into silence. The overseers didn't fear humanity for its violence. They feared humanity's ability to love in a collapsing system. He could see it all now, and it made him furious. The loop anchor floated ahead, 7 miles of dead metal wrapped in quantum lock fields. Beneath its hull, he saw prisons disguised as anomalies. Alternate versions of Mara, of himself, of Earth. All held in recursive agony, their timelines slowly decompressed into nothing. Each one still alive, still screaming. Breaker whined at his feet. I know, Char whispered, his voice laced with static and fire. We get them out. A pulse from the anchor fired, solid light, high gravity collapse, the kind of thing that should have turned even a demigod into particles. Char raised a hand. The pulse froze mid-space. It trembled, then shattered like crystal against an unseen wall. Zeno's voice rumbled through the neural lattice in his skull. They do not understand pain as you do. You carry death in memory, and love in rage. They are unfamiliar with either. Char's eyes burned. Let's make them familiar. He pointed, and the human ship, once dead, half alive and haunted, screamed forward, ripping across dimensions like a jagged spear. As it passed, timelines rewrote. Air became blood, code became song. Mara's face flickered through the view screen, 5 versions at once, all of them watching him. He felt their fear, their hope. The weapon systems lit green, and then the Overseer arrived. Not a ship, not even a thing. It was a void-shaped will, a collapse in meaning, a sentient refusal of causality. It bent around the edges of understanding. Where it moved, reality wept. It didn't speak, it unwrote. Char felt Zeno recoil for the first time. We are outmatched. This is a kill sign. Char clenched his fists. Good. The Overseer moved, and time shattered. He was in a trench on a forgotten moon, blood in his mouth, screaming Mara's name as the sky fell. He was 5 years old, holding a dead puppy, feeling the weight of a universe that would never be kind. He was nothing but light and algorithm, watching his own death from a god's vantage. He was... Breaker bit his arm. Real. Now. Pain as an anchor. The Overseer reeled back, confused. Char stood tall. You want why we drink poison? Why we keep apex predators in our homes? Why we patch our own wounds with string and teeth? His voice shook the void. It's because we've never been allowed to be safe. Not once. Mara's voice, one of them, joined his, transmitted across the fracture. And we still choose to care, still choose to fight. That's the magic, you smug quantum parasite. The Overseer pulsed. It tried to destabilize them again, and it might have worked. Except, the other ships appeared. Not human, not alien, hybrid. From fractured timelines, rewritten realities. Ships made from human tenacity welded to alien regret. Each one captained by a different version of Mara. Each one carrying a breaker. The Overseer hesitated, and that was all Char needed. Zeno, he breathed. Light it. Confirmed. Running humanity.exe. Emotion unbound protocol. The fleet fired. Not weapons, memories. Compressed emotional data. First kisses. Dying parents. Held hands in collapsing shelters. Every impossible human contradiction. It hit the Overseer, and it screamed. Not from pain, from understanding. For the first time, the entity felt grief, then guilt, then love, and it fractured, cracked down the middle. Inside the breach, a child's voice. Char stepped forward, listened. It was his own, from some long-dead loop. I don't want to be alone anymore. He closed his eyes and reached out. Breaker barked once, and the Overseer collapsed into a sphere of light and apology. The loop anchor failed. The timelines began to merge. Char dropped to his knees, blood dripping from his ears. Breaker licked his face. The final message from Zeno hummed inside his skull. You are no longer a variable. You are the axis. The fusion dissolved. Zeno was gone. The god was dead. Only Char remained, human, broken, alive. Behind him, the fleet prepared for what came next. Not war, not conquest, but the rebuilding of what was never allowed to exist. A unified reality. One where humans didn't just survive, they defined the rules. But then, from the far edge of the timelines, something answered the Overseer's death cry. Something worse. A black ring opened, and a voice spoke from beyond the loop wall. You woke them. Char turned and saw the real enemy. The ring was absence, a black eclipse not made of shadow, but of rejection. Light refused to exist near it, sound twisted sideways, even memory bent around the edges. Char stood at the nexus of 12 fractured timelines, dripping blood and Xeno's afterglow, as the new voice spoke again, not as vibration or language, but as command embedded in existence. You interfered with the harvest. Emotion is not for the primitives to wield. Your kind was meant to burn quietly. Char's breath fogged in the silence. The cold wasn't physical, it was conceptual, the kind that made gods forget why they mattered. From the black ring stepped a shape that wasn't, a hole in definition. It wore a face, a child's, inverted and frozen in grayscale, but behind its eyes, nothing that had ever been alive. Mara's voice crackled through comms, raw and shaking. "The Omega Loop, I thought it was myth." "It's not," Char said, staring into the horror. "It's management." It approached slowly, each step rewriting time around it. The hybrid fleet behind Char began glitching. Dogs howled, ships flickered, Maras across timelines began to collapse, bleed, fragment. The Omega Loop wasn't a being, it was a failsafe. When reality refused to comply with the system's emotional harvesting, this thing was deployed to prune the timeline like dead branches. It didn't kill, it reset everything. Char could feel the pressure behind it. Entire universes held in quantum kill chains, ready to detonate if they lost control of Earth again. You weaponized love. You taught grief to fight back. You will not be allowed to persist. It raised one limb infinitely jointed, bending wrong through time, and pointed at Char. Correction begins now. Char opened his hand. Nothing. Xeno was gone, powerless. And yet, he stood anyway, because humans don't kneel to things that erase meaning. Breaker growled beside him. The Mara on the flagship, the Prime One, stood too, despite her face bleeding static. Then one more Mara, and another, then thousands, all across collapsing branches of space. Every version of Mara, every version of humanity still surviving, stood. And from their ships came a sound, not a weapon, not a shield, a voice, singing. Old Earth songs, children's lullabies, war chants, broken melodies from a world long burned but never forgotten. Char joined them, and he smiled. The Omega Loop twitched. It did not understand ritual. It did not understand defiance without logic. The humans advanced, one step, then another, weapons lowered, eyes open. The loop tried to fire its first weapon, a conceptual reset spike aimed at Earth's core emotional threads. But it failed, because something impossible had happened. The timelines had synced. Every human across the branches had chosen the same act, to stand, to feel, to sing. And reality bent, not to power, to belief. Mara's voice came through clear, no longer fractured. "This is your final loop." And Char whispered the last words before he jumped into the ring, Breaker leaping beside him. "We are the anomaly." Inside the ring, there was fire. There was ice. There was home. He held it in his mind. Not Earth, but the idea of Earth. Of coffee shared between soldiers in bunkers, of dogs mistaken for monsters, of girls with scars learning to dance again. He burned, he screamed, he broke. And then, the ring cracked. It did not shatter. It split, as if forced to acknowledge a truth it couldn't delete. And through that fracture poured not death, but freedom. Every timeline, once harvested, once looped, once bled dry, released. Across the stars, forgotten human worlds woke up screaming, then laughing. Alien allies dropped to their knees, their memory constraints unlocking. The Overseer's infrastructure melted into ruins of shame and ash. The Omega Loop fell to its knees. And Char? He collapsed in the aftermath, ribs crushed, vision gone, lungs raw, but alive. A hand caught him. Mara, the real one, the last one. She pulled him close. Breaker curled against his chest, whimpering like a puppy in rain. And Char whispered, "Did it work?" Mara laughed through tears. "They're rewriting the math, Char. Humans are no longer the anomaly." He blinked up at the sky, blue, for the first time in all his lives. "You want to know the secret?" he whispered to no one and everyone. "It was never the potion, never the toxin, never the dog, or the blood, or the coffee. It was the fact that we choose to get up, over and over, even when it makes no sense." He coughed, tasted ash, smiled anyway. "We drink poison because we're trying to stay awake." The stars pulsed once, as if in agreement. And Earth sang, not from safety, but from freedom. The loop was broken. Long live the anomaly. The end.